And so with that, we're going to open up the questions. We've got mic runners over here. We have Kelly here, just over here. So if you have a question, raise your hand, and we will get you a mic and endeavor to answer the question for you. First, I don't care. You guys choose. There you go. Let's go with right here, and then we'll keep going.
Just had a couple of quick questions about App Center. There's some confusion. Before App Center was launched, there was app pages. If we had an app page prior to App Center launching, there's no automatic inclusion in App Center. Is that correct? We have to apply separately?
So basically you're talking about app pages like the Pages product and having an app page like app content within it. So what you can do today is you can, through App Center, you can basically create a new page. What you can't do today through the automated tools is you can't actually associate an existing page to your app detail page. That's something we're taking a look at. Expect to hear more about it reasonably soon. But you can today go create a page through the App Center process, which will then be linked in your app detail page so you can have like an additional promotional page or something. What we want to do, and the restriction there, is we want to make sure that they are tightly coupled, meaning that your app detail page is associated to a page that defines your product, not to a page that is maybe related to a specific character or something like that. It's actually about the specific product that you're marketing.
Okay, let's go to this side here, and then we'll alternate back and forth.
So when you talked about promotion and social, you had likes, friends, activity, and intent. Can you help me understand what intent means?
So unfortunately, I'm not an ads PM. I probably can't answer that, but grab me afterwards, and I can introduce you to the right person, and we can like really go deep into it. Absolutely.
Let's go to this side. Oh, here we go. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, my question's around UI. I can understand, like, for gaming applications wanting to blend in with the graphic design of the rest of the application. Is there a standard widgetry that you would recommend for lifestyle apps? Standard login buttons, standard dialogues, that sort of thing?
Yeah. In fact, if you look in the SDKs for both Android and iOS, you'll see a few of those things in there. And we're actually working on building out more of those, but we currently have one for Places, and then for showing friends, and then also for the login button.
Yeah, the login button. So as much as you can, like we have a lot of these for the web, which is our social plugins product. What we're endeavoring to do right now, and we have an entire team of engineers that are trying to bring sort of the best stylized social plugin-esque sort of functionality into the iOS SDK as well as the Android SDK. Go over here. Good.
If we have multiple apps sharing the same app ID, and so they have the same App Center page, is there a way to promote those apps separately through the Power Editor, or are we stuck kind of promoting all the apps at once?
I think I know the answer. If I don't, someone will correct me. My understanding is that you can target whether or not it's a mobile device user or a desktop user inside of the Power Editor itself, utilizing the same app ID. If that's not true, somebody on the is that right? I got the thumbs up, so it must be right.
No, actually, you guys told us we have multiple mobile apps that we're sharing the same app ID with.
These are different apps?
Yeah.
Those are different apps. They're part of an ecosystem of apps, right?
Yeah, my understanding is you can't do it that way, but you can do it by device. So if you have the same app ID with 3 different projections, web, iOS, and Android, you can target those by device. But you couldn't target by some other unique identifier like app name.
Okay, even through the Power Editor?
Even through the Power Editor, that's my understanding. Okay, over here.
Yes. Hi. So I have a question regarding requests. It's my understanding that requests have to be associated with either Canvas, iOS, or Android. My company currently has a full-featured website and also an iPhone app. So I'm wondering if somebody's on our website, they've signed in through Facebook, and then they want to then invite one of their Facebook friends. But they don't necessarily know if that person, say, has an iPhone, right? So they want to invite them to, check out the product. It seems like we don't have a Canvas page for them to link that request to, So what would be the best practice regarding if you're on an external website, somebody's logged in through Facebook and wants to, essentially invite one of their friends to come use that application?
Is it a game?
It's not a game.
Yeah.
It's like a lifestyle app, I guess.
Yeah, so what we basically have done is, I've got to be careful how I actually say this. You can use the request channel if you're a Connect application, but you have to be what we would consider an Open Graph app. There's some nuance there, but we can spend some time offline, so it's okay for you to use the request channel, and other folks actually do use it. when they don't necessarily have a Canvas page. But what it does require you to do is to bounce from a Canvas page out to your external site, because the target of it has to go to a page. And we only allow that for Open Graph applications. Our policies are a bit ambiguous when it comes to that, but generally we've allowed that to happen.
Okay, so it's just like a bare bones kind of Canvas app that
do a 302
bounces.
from that.
Gotcha.
Yes, over here.
Hi. Is there a way to weight the significance of some of the stories of your apps versus against each other? In other words, is there a way to provide a signal to which EdgeRank can decide which of their stories is more important?
There is. Basically, the Open Graph provides you the ability to say whether or not a story is explicit or not. And this is basically a signal for us on whether or not we should show a full newsfeed story as well as a full story on the user's profile, rather than just rolling it up inside of an aggregation. We're spending a lot of time thinking about whether or not we should have a little more nuance than just a Boolean, whether or not, like, is it a full story or just activity. And so that's something we're thinking through. But right now we basically have the ability for you to specify, is this an activity or is this a story? And if it's an explicit story, it'll show up as an explicit newsfeed story, both on the timeline as well as on newsfeed. And if you don't mark it as that, we may just aggregate that thing and we may not generate a full newsfeed story. Which way am I going? Over here? Over here. Yes, good.
Is there an intent of having app-to-user requests coming out as push notification from Facebook?
Right now, it's just a Canvas-only product. And we're thinking about different ways to engage that, but native notifications are pretty good. So we want to make sure if we do something there, it's something that's going to add value to your product. Right now, it's Canvas only, though.
Okay. Over here. Good.
On the developer blog, you have posted that certain custom actions are going to be going away. Can you clarify a little bit, and especially in terms of best practices, which actions you guys are trying to, custom actions you guys are trying to limit?
Let me just kind of step back and talk a little bit about this. Basically, as Charles said and Konstantin said as well, is we have a set of built-in actions that we have. And what we have always said since we first launched the Open Graph was that as we sort of observed the ecosystem evolve over time, we wanted to look at the ecosystem and then things that we could basically look at and decide that they were very common in practice, try to roll them up into a singular set of actions. And so what we've been doing is we've been doing two different techniques. The first technique that we've been doing is we will actually look at what the ecosystem has developed and we will basically coin new built-in actions. Or what we will do is tell folks, listen, that's really not a good use for a custom action. We want you to use a specific built-in action. But what we've also been doing is adding over time the ability for you to subclass those things. I mean, what we're really doing with the Open Graph, I got to be careful how I say this, but it really is the semantic web in some respects, of where we are creating a type system for both mobile as well as the web. And we're going to create some base types that then you can inherit from, but you also have the ability to extend effectively from OG object. And so what we're just basically doing is we're watching how the ecosystem evolves over time, and we're deciding one of two things. Either you have to use this particular built-in, or you can extend from a particular built-in and give it your own name. I'll give you an example. We observed that lots of people were doing love and fab and foobar or what have you, and basically what they were trying to express was affinity. And we have a built-in action that does that, which is like. And what we did was we introduced like inheritance for you to be able to take those things that represent affinity and for you to extend those. But that enables us to actually roll those things up in a first-class way where we have a unified concept of affinity. And that allows us to take a fab and a love and a like and put it all sort of in the same thing. And so you're building with us sort of this semantic web, as it were. And we try to be very cognizant of that over time. But the best way you can kind of think about it is we're building a type system for individuals, basically, and what activity they engage in. And so we'll see as this evolves over time. But for the most part, what we're trying to do is just create an organic type system that isn't us by dictate, but rather us as a community sort of observing what works best. Where? Here? Okay, here first, yeah.
Question about how ratings work in Facebook App Center. And is there a way to prompt users or to send them to rate an app in the Facebook App Center?
Yeah, the way that our rating system works, I don't know if you want to cover it or I can.
Yeah, so first question, no, there's no way to prompt a user to rate. The way that basically users will get randomly sampled and asked to rate an app, through various activities on the site. The way that ranking works in the App Center is basically the notion of quality, and rating is one of those things that are count into that, as well as obviously the engagement that you're getting within the app. So the short answer, really, if you want to get higher on that list, is get more users, get them more engaged, get them to like your app more. Basically, build a great product, and you'll start to rise naturally as a result.
Back here.
So this is for Charles. You recommended allowing the user to control the sharing experience. One problem we had when we rolled out a voting app is we did not explicitly allow the user to either publish or not publish to Facebook their activities, so they had a bunch of things going into their feeds, and they became concerned that it was looking spammy. Do you recommend then on our application or website allowing the user to have all of their activity tracked, but then control what should be shared back to Facebook and what shouldn't be shared back to Facebook, making that really explicit to the user?
Yeah, I think the more you put the user in control of and try to make sure what you explain to them that they're sharing is exactly what shows up, the higher engagement you'll tend to have. And there's two things that you can do. In sounds like maybe in your context. First thing is, I would separate out the type of activity that is kind of action-based. So using Pinterest as an example, when I repin something or if I share content, that's very action-based. So there's an obvious place to, and even there it's just automatic. So they're just letting you know that they're going to share and you can opt out of it. Then the other thing is, there's types of experiences where I'm just going to turn the feature on once and it will happen in the background. And so maybe an example there would be a running app where I might just opt into it once and then it happens automatically as just in the background as I walk around during the day. Let's say it's pedometer or whatever. So in that case, the best experience would be, again, make it very explicit what's going to show up on their Facebook feed and only put that there. And the other thing I would do is consider whether those should be posted as using that implicit flag that we talked about. Because what that will do is it will tend to surface that content more as aggregations and more around things that would be part of my identity. So in the pedometer case, it's going to post like an aggregation that shows me how many steps I took and where I walked during the month. And it's not going to put in my feed like every time I take a step, right? Which is where people feel like you're oversharing. So yeah, but definitely think about, like, you may have multiple points. It's not a lot of times just one turn on Facebook. It's like activate Facebook, and then there's multiple points in your app where the user's activating specific things they want to share. And the more you do that, the more they'll trust you.
Okay, another question over here. If you have a question, just raise your hand, and
we have time for one more question.
Is that it? One more. All right.
Okay.
This one or one after this? I can do both. All right. So whoever gets the luck of the draw over here. Go ahead.
My question is about market segmentation. Some lifestyle apps have different rules in different countries, like Amazon US, and then Amazon has a completely different stack for Amazon.uk. So if you're launching mobile apps, a lot of times you'll have a different mobile app for UK or Germany or Mexico. How would that tie in with Facebook's App Center and localizations and stuff like that?
So will you have different app IDs or the same
yes,
thing?
Different app IDs.
Yeah, so what you can do, there's basically two ways localization works in App Center. I'm going to make this really quick. Feel free to grab me afterwards for more detail. One, if you have an app ID that supports multiple locales, you can go through the localize tool and give us content for each one of them, right? So the German description, the French one. Okay. If your app, you primarily have a German version, it's a different app ID only for Germany. Rather there, you can set the primary language of that app for German, and then fill out the primary details in German, and then submit that, which will go through the review process. And then you'll have multiple listings for the same app, which will show up, like the German one will show up in Germany, for example, not in the US, things like that.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
One last question over here.
Yeah, we are app developers, game developers, and we're very excited about the user-generated requests. But we also worry about people inviting too much, because our game has incentivized users to add more friends so they can play with each other. But would that be filtered out? I mean, are we going to be considered spam? I mean, it's going directly to a push notification. How would that affect the user? Are we consolidating all those requests and invites? And just want to be worried about what if we get kicked out of Facebook or what, Sure.
Go ahead, Troy.
So you can get kicked out of Facebook if you really want to.
But we don't want you to. That's why we're talking.
So the suggestion. So I think here's the thing. Like, first of all, requests when you send requests, multiple requests to a user are aggregated, and they show up in a kind of central page where the user can go process them. So that's like all standard. The key thing that I really recommend is to make sure that that it matches the user's intent, and you send fewer requests but target them better, and that's one reason I spent so much time on that invite flow. The more you do that, it controls spam rates and opt-out rates where users are telling us what we call negative feedback in our Insights product. That's really, for most developers, high levels of negative feedback is what will trigger you to get like booted, right? And so as long as you're generally respecting users, try to make sure that they're engaged first before you send those requests. And don't be too aggressive about it. Limit yourself in some of the ways we talked about. You will have really low negative feedback, and you can keep going. We do have some policies you should make sure you check. I'm not going into all the details, but make sure you check that you're not violating our specific policies. But other than that, you should be fine to offer, encourage people to come join.
Yeah, let me add one thing to that. Like, you basically know how many requests that user has sent out to other users and who they've sent them out to. And so we see the best patterns of where you would only surface to them actual users that they haven't invited. Or you have some kind of frequency counter that actually says, oh, wait a minute, you've already sent 3 to this particular user. We're going to stop you from doing that, or we're going to take it out of the autofill. And so the other thing you can do is and with that in mind from a design point perspective, you can kind of monitor your X-out rates inside of Insights, which we haven't spent a lot of time on. We've got a really good product for you to be able to see sort of how people are reacting to you. And what you can do is you can A/B test sort of what those thresholds are. So it's really incumbent upon you to kind of look at it and really just don't pop up our request dialog and let users just go crazy, right? In fact, we see the best performance where you create your own invite flow and then you use our request dialog and you populate it via that mechanism. And so you can really control a lot of this stuff. You just kind of have to be mindful about it. Okay, so what we're going to do right now is this will not be the last time you can ask questions. So if your question did not get answered or you didn't get to ask it, we've got a whole bunch of time for questions in a few moments. We're going to break for lunch right now. For those of you that are iOS developers, you stay in this room. For those of you that are Android developers, you go to my left. It's called Nux, and you'll go there and learn all about Android. And we're going to reconvene at 1 o'clock. Is that correct? 1 o'clock, and you're going to go from learning what and why in the how. Thank you.
Feel free to find us if you have questions during lunch.